I found that a very powerful exercise, both for the product team who's developing products as well as the sales team, is to take a step back from your technology and think about the person that you're selling to, the person that can benefit from your product or service, and outline in their job function the pains that they have, the jobs to be done that they look to accomplish to achieve business outcomes for that particular function, and then mapping those to your product or services, the pains that they help alleviate, the opportunities for impact that those products or services deliver. And you can do that mapping exercise with the sales team and with the SE team as well, and it really helps you accelerate your product market fit if you're early stage, and also accelerate your sales effort to make sure that everything that you're talking about, all the presentations that you're delivering, are tied to real jobs to be done and business outcomes that your customers are trying to drive.
So I want to sort of like jump in immediately, because I think there's actually, before I started recording the episode, there's been a lot of people who have started to think about solutions engineering in building their own companies, in hiring their first team members, to start to think about what that looks like. For the uninitiated, can you explain a little bit about the solution engineering world a little bit? And it may not be as popular as customer success or sales engineering, but can you maybe sort of dissect solutions engineering a little bit and provide a bit more context about what that is, and how does it relate to sort of sales and customer success, and how does it fit in within the grand scheme and the grand picture of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So solutions engineering is a role or function that has been around since the beginning of technology sales. And I think to understand it, you sort of have to understand what it was like in its earliest form. I would say the best way to understand the solutions engineering function is to understand where we got started. It's been around since the beginning of technology. And effectively, back in the days of early on-site technical sales, you would have an account executive and a field systems engineer that would come along with that account executive and be the expert in the technology. Way back in the day, they used to bring computers with them. They'd have to bring them on site. They'd have to install it with the client. They'd have to set up a projector and present the value of the technology in the best way possible. They were considered the technical experts. Some of those same principles still apply, but today, solutions engineering is about helping to articulate business value for customers, partnering typically with an account executive, with sometimes partnering with a post-sales resource as well. And they are the experts in the product, but also experts in how to articulate the value of a product or service effectively. So as much as it's changed over the last number of years, it's very similar in principle, where we are the technical experts meant to accompany a salesperson and a critical part of the sales team to make a sale happen.
Would you say that it's a critical part in informing, how does it sort of like, does it come under sales, or is it a separate entity in and of itself, a separate business unit? And what are sort of like the benefits of having something like this? Because I know that there are organizations out there who may not necessarily have a solutions engineering team or a solutions engineering business unit, but what's the advantage of thinking about creating something like this, especially for early stage companies who are sort of B2B, who are selling not necessarily easy to understand solutions or easy to integrate solutions, and really need some technical folks on the ground to really help them understand how to work with them, how to use the product. How does that fit in within the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, like, broadly speaking, the benefit of an SE or solutions engineer or solutions consultant, whatever you call them, is to help increase win rates and help increase and enhance credibility that you bring to a sales cycle. And I don't think it actually is something that is necessarily dependent on heavy technical complexity. I think it is very easy to think about a scaled function adding value to a sales cycle in the form of a demonstration to help bring credibility and help to enable a buying decision. One of the things that's changed about sales over the last number of years is that the buyer is a lot more educated than they were before. There's so many resources that are out there. They're also a lot further in the sales process by the time you engage them for the first time. So what they're really looking for is less of a sales pitch, more help making sense of complexity. And when you have somebody like a solutions engineer who has deep product expertise and business expertise, it helps lend a lot more credibility to the sales cycle.
Yeah, I think that's really important. But also, I think at the same time, it generates strong signal and strong goodwill on your part as the organization to at least be able to showcase to these customers, these potential customers as well, about you're serious. You're really taking this to heart. You really want to make sure that they're comfortable and they're happy using the product. Have you noticed any changes, like, versus one organization that doesn't have solutions engineering versus one organization that does? How does that translate into customer satisfaction? How does it translate into potential more sales, customer retention, and all of those key metrics that you look for in terms of success?
Yeah. So, I would say I've always looked at the value add of a solutions engineer is at various stages in the sales process. So early in the sales process, early stage, sales engineer is very effective at helping to qualify deals in or out, to gauge whether or not there is a technical fit, gauge whether or not the customer fits the right ICP, and they do so in a much more accelerated fashion. So there's a lot of value there early in the sales process to make sure that the deals that are coming into your sales process are of a high quality. But also, the way that sales has changed, as I mentioned before, over the last number of years, is that the process is a lot more transparent. It's less about selling; it's more about enabling a decision. And when you get a qualified prospect who is looking for help in enabling a decision, the SE in the mid to late stage deal can really help accelerate the sales cycle and help the prospect make sense of sort of complex concepts and help them understand how they're going to be successful using your product or service. And then over the long term, of course, we, especially in the world of SaaS or even a consumption model, it's really critical that that customer is successful over the short and long term. And if you're just bringing customers in the door who are not a good fit, bringing in the customers in the door that haven't been qualified, it's not going to be healthy for your business long term. You're not going to be around for that much longer. So it's a mutual benefit to both the customer and the sales team to bring an SE in to help qualify those deals more appropriately, and also make sure the customers set up for success over the long term. And those qualification criteria are sort of one and the same, in my opinion. You're looking for people that are going to be a good fit and have long-term potential for success. And SE is very well suited to help set that up.
So in terms of the process itself, and this is something that may vary between organizations, is really about how do you sort of onboard or get going in working with these customers on a solutions engineering level. Can you maybe explain a little bit about your experience at Rippling, or perhaps your experience at other companies, about some of the variations or some of the similarities between how to actually set up good processes around establishing a good solutions engineering practice, so to speak?
That's a broad question. Obviously, there's a lot of complexity there. I would say the way I like to think about the SE function, regardless of the shape or size of your organization, if you're early stage or you've got a couple hundred SEs in organizations that I've been at, I think it's important to think about it in the context of the business value that you're providing to the customer. It's like a consulting engagement. When you're in pre-sales, it's a free consulting engagement. Effectively, you're trying to understand what the customer is trying to accomplish. You take your expertise and apply it there to devise a solution that's going to fit well, with what the customer's trying to accomplish as well with your technology or service. And then you want to extend that. What a lot of people are doing in the modern days is extending that through to the point of activation or past the point of activation. So when the customer becomes a customer, you have SE-like functions that are helping to support onboarding, helping to support the ongoing customer success. At Rippling, we actually have both SE's supporting new logo sales as well as our account management function. So we're working with both brand new customers and existing customers. And the engagements can be slightly different depending on the products that you're positioning. For us, up front, we're generally positioning a different set of products for a net new customer than we are for an existing customer that has some of our payroll products, for example, and we can help them understand and appreciate the value of adding on services like IT or Finance Cloud, for example. So, to answer your question more directly, I think setting up the process surrounding SE engagement just takes some work in understanding the life cycle of a customer. both in terms of customer acquisition and also, what it takes to make that customer successful, and then figuring out where the SE, plays a part throughout.
Yep. Yeah, makes sense. I know I want to sort of backtrack a little bit because you did mention a very interesting acronym, which is ICP. And I was just talking about ICP to some of the founders that we're working with and how to sort of like build that out. For those who don't know, can you just explain very quickly what ICP is and why it's so crucial, especially in understanding your customer?
Yeah, I think it's like, the key component in understanding if you have the potential for product market fit is first to understand who the ideal customer is for your product or service. And of course, there are some companies that have one ICP and they're going hard against that ICP to help prove value for that particular type of customer. And some that have many different ideal customer profiles depending on the product, service, or product mix that you're selling. I found that a very powerful exercise, both for the product team who's developing products as well as the sales team, is to take a step back from your technology and think about the person that you're selling to, the person that can benefit from your product or service, and outline in their job function the pains that they have, the jobs to be done that they look to accomplish to achieve business outcomes for that particular function, and then mapping those to your product or services, the pains that they help alleviate, the opportunities for impact that those products or services deliver. And you can do that mapping exercise with the sales team and with the SE team as well. And it really helps you accelerate your product market fit if you're early stage, and also accelerate your sales effort to make sure that everything that you're talking about, all the presentations that you're delivering, are tied to real jobs to be done and business outcomes that your customers are trying to drive.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I think that mapping feature and that exercise really becomes more cross-functional at that point, and you're able to really understand a little bit more about in depth of, okay, this is how you actually approach the customer, this is how it would better fit the customer. And I think you get a lot of discoveries made during that process, which is really key. Let's switch gears quickly. Oh, sorry, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, one more point on that, which I think is like, there's applicability for SEs. Yeah. Any size company, but I think I have advised early stage companies, especially technical founders. They're immersed in their product day in and day out, and it's a very personal thing for them, of course. And sometimes it's a powerful exercise to step outside of that and even just find one person on LinkedIn who fits what you believe to be your ideal customer profile, and then perform that sort of mapping exercise that I described earlier. It can be really powerful to also to know if you're on the right track. Is there an actual person that would buy this? Why would they buy it? What jobs to be done am I accomplishing for them? What business outcomes can be accomplished for them? But on the flip side, I've also found a lot of folks who have struggle finding somebody on LinkedIn or finding a person that exists that fits the profile of the person that they'd want to buy their technology or service. And it can be a powerful exercise to align benefit to the technology you're developing.
So quickly then, what does it mean if they can't find anyone that fits their profile or their archetype customer? Is that a signal that maybe they're targeting the wrong customer, or the product that they're creating doesn't necessarily have a fit?
Yeah, I would say it's an early sign of that. If it's really hard to find somebody that would be interested in even just taking a conversation about the benefit that you're providing. Because I think sometimes you get really excited about technology, and this is, I think, particularly prevalent with generative AI and all the work that people are doing on top of large language models. They're building something that's really, really cool, but the business applicability is sort of hard to distill, and so it forces you to distill that business applicability in the form of an actual person that would benefit from it. And sometimes you find somebody like, hey, this might be the buyer, but that's a person that never has budget, or they're low level. So you have to just rethink your strategy and your go-to-market, which can also help shape how you're developing the product and how you get feedback on it.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's talk about, I really want to obviously focus this on really companies who are starting up and scaling up, especially from the, they've gone through a bouts of fundraising, they're starting to grow their team, they're in the sort of space where they probably will need something like an SA team. Can you perhaps explain a little bit about what makes a good SA team? And in doing so, how do you go out and build a good SA team, especially if you're part of the leadership team, you don't necessarily have a strong SE background, but you want to look at someone to lead the SE effort, someone who's well experienced and who can better understand a little bit about what the SE team could potentially look like. How do you think about, and what are some of the sort of advice you can give to leaders out there who are starting to scale, but who are also thinking about maybe an SE team is something that we need? What does that thinking process look like?
I think, especially for early stage companies, the easiest way to think about it is that your first SE is often your CTO or product lead, or even the CEO in many cases, as I've seen, where they're the ones that are on the customer calls doing the demos. Mm-hmm. And when they look for that first SE is generally when they've hired their first 2 or 3 account executives, or fewer, depending on the complexity of sale. And they need somebody to go and supplement those efforts, because obviously the CEO, the CTO have other work that they need to accomplish, and they can't scale across all those customer engagements. So you find that out pretty quickly, especially early stage. I would say, like, general rule of thumb, of course, this depends on the size of company that you're selling to and the size of the deals that you're supporting. Anywhere between 3 to 5 account executives is when you want to start thinking about how many demos are they doing on their own, how complex are some of these sales engagements that we're having, and also, especially for markets where you have competing technologies, how are my competitors showing up to those sales cycles? Mm. If you're competing with a company that is also bringing an SE to the table, that's a huge differentiator. They're always going to win more because they're bringing more professional resources, and they're differentiating not just through their expertise, because maybe you do have an AE who can do it all, but bringing 2 people to the table, they can ask different questions in a sales cycle. It's far more effective. So that's also another proxy to look at.
When it comes to hiring potential SE, people within the team, who do you look for? Is it someone who definitely has a bit of a salesy type of experience, or those who have more of a technical experience? Because sometimes, in my experience, and speaking with fellow founder friends, they are sometimes stuck between a hard place and a rock, because they want someone who has great communication skills, who's able to talk well with customers, but they also want them to be technically savvy as well. So does one take precedence over the other, or do you favor one, or there should be a balance between hiring these types of SE folks?
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of the profession. That's why I've been in it. I haven't been able to get away from this profession, because it is a kind of a unique person that is a good fit for the role. And of course, depending on what you're selling, sometimes you need to trend more towards a deep technical expertise that's required, because if you don't show up with that credibility, nobody's going to listen to you. But generally speaking, it's a blend of both sales and technical acumen. If you can get away with it, I've seen some of the most successful SEs come from like a customer support background, where they're interfacing with customers, they're comfortable talking to customers, but they have a strong sales aptitude and they like sales. That's really critical, because it absolutely is a sales job. You don't want to get somebody who comes from a technical background and doesn't enjoy interfacing with customers, which would be really difficult to do the job effectively, but also doesn't like sales. And in the sales is it is a sales role. You're supporting sales executives, and you spend more time with the AEs than you do with anybody else. So you better like hanging out with those people, and you better like working towards a sales goal.
So would it be safe to say that if you do have, let's say you're trying to hire someone to be an SE down the road, not immediately, but at least become an AE, an account executive, so strong sales experience, strong communication, strong aptitude for all of that, would it be feasible to then start to hone them towards an SE role if they so seek, then they can start to learn the technical aspects of the product?
Yeah, I've seen some really successful, and I have a few on my team right now, successful former AEs that became SEs. They just demonstrated an early passion and natural curiosity for the product, and they brought with them that sales aptitude and hunger, and that can be a great recipe for success. Also seen it on the flip side. I've seen a lot of really strong SEs become really strong sales leaders, and even CROs and CEOs, because they come with that technical aptitude tied to business value, which is a really unique skill set. Again, it depends on the company and the how technical the product is. But generally speaking, you just want somebody that has natural curiosity, who is a good presenter, who has a passion for both product and sales, and is excited for the role and open to coaching and development.
So when it comes to scaling now, and especially when you are, because your experience is unique because you have been through the full spectrum of a company, from a super early stage all the way to scale up and growth and beyond. Can you maybe describe a little bit about some of the journey that you personally have taken in obviously being in the SE space for such a quite a long time, especially when those who are seeking to themselves to be more involved in SE, but they're probably working for an early stage company themselves, and they can't anticipate what's going to happen. Obviously it's going to be it's a roller coaster ride, a lot of ups and downs. Can you provide maybe a little sliver of insights into some of your personal experience when it comes to sort of having an SE background, being involved in SE roles, but through that transitory period between, early stage to scale to high growth, what does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's another expansive question, I would say. In a nutshell, early stage companies, when you're one of the first SEs, you're doing a lot more than the traditional job description. You're doing a lot of building, you're helping to devise demo strategy, you're interfacing directly with product on a regular basis to help inform the product roadmap. You have more exposure to customers and how they're interpreting your technology than anybody else. So it can be really, really fun in that regard. And also you're seen as a resource who has a ton of value for the executive team as well. When I was the only SE at a company, I built the demo sites. I was responsible for forging technical partnerships because I had the technical context. I was also talking to the CEO on a regular basis because she wanted to know, how people were receiving the technology and how we should adjust our go-to-market. It was a lot of fun, but a lot of work, and a lot different than, when we had, when I was a single SE on a team of 300. You just spend a lot of your time focused on customers, which is great. And I think it's really important as you're thinking, if you're an SE who's pursuing this career and thinking about going one direction or the other, if you join, a scaling startup or company of any size that's growing, you have to be willing to not only do the traditional described activities, focusing on customers and driving new revenue growth, but also the building activities that surround it. Because I called this the plight of the capable. A lot of SEs are just very capable of doing a lot of different things, and so they get pulled in a lot of different directions. And then at bigger companies, you get to focus on the large customers and just focus on your craft and focus on delivering value for customers as well.
Yeah, makes sense. I wanted to touch on the customer success side of things. I know that nowadays, customer success is becoming much more popular, and it's kind of has this sort of separation from sales and even solutions engineering. Can you sort of just speak to a little bit about your experience with customer success, your thoughts around, does customer success play a pivotal role? Is there overlap? Is there alignment between SEs? And in any case, can SEs in and of itself become customer success as well? I feel like it's more of nomenclature and how you view the role and the business unit. But are there similarities, or do you treat them separately?
Yeah, I think I'm a big believer in the concept of having, an organization to drive net new revenue growth and an organization to support existing customers and help them grow as well. And that's sort of like the traditional description of customer success, is to make sure that folks are successful so they can continue to grow with you as a company. I also, though, believe that we're going to see where those two functions are going to start to kind of merge together under one common leader, including the SE role. So the SE role is traditionally known as pre-sales, right? We were only focused on net new customer acquisition. And then in the past, you'd sort of like throw that over the fence, and then that was the customer success domain. But, given how every company is becoming a multi-product company these days, there's a lot of mini sales cycles within one larger customer relationship. The SE role has gone from pre to post sales and beyond, and so we're supporting both the net new customer acquisition channel as well as existing customers and making sure they're successful, making sure renewals are solidified, as well as making sure that they understand the value of our products with their existing footprint. And that story continues in how you articulate value. So I've seen it. We've sort of extended into post-sales and customer success. Customer success is essential. That was a function championed, I think, at Salesforce long ago, where we had the kind of the first concept of a CSM, and that was critical in growing the existing customer base, because a lot of those customers at Salesforce have been there for a long time, and I think that's a big part of it is they're focused on customer success. But I think the two roles, sales and success, are going to come back together in the near future, and then SE is going to support them foundationally across.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I do agree, because obviously I have a lot of friends, and even my partner herself, she's been in customer success for a long time, and we always have conversations about the role she's playing. How does it add to customer retention, but also new acquisition of customers as well? And then you get this nice feedback loop that's going. And obviously every organization is different, but it's interesting just to hear about sort of where you see the customer success transitioning towards. And then you mentioned the SE layer as well. And I think at her company, they're starting to think about building out an SE division, so that she's not brought into different decisions and things that she's spread too thin. So I feel like it's definitely helping her and also her organization and her team to better streamline that by having some sort of SE layer that supports all of them.
Yeah, and it helps breed expertise in the customer life cycle. You're not there; it's not a walled concept. You don't have a silo pre and post sales. And I will say it's absolutely beneficial for the customer. This is not just about driving revenue, but when you have a success organization that is tied to growth and business value, then they also take a vested interest in making sure that you're not just don't have that shelfware just sitting on the shelf. Like, you are actually utilizing your technology or services in a way that actually drives business outcomes. And the upside is that you can potentially sell new products there as well to attach to business value. But I think that's really critical. That's actually a recent development where, historically speaking, I would say customer success organizations were focused on retention, keeping folks happy, but not necessarily focused on, the business value tied to those efforts. And now, because you're starting to see those two, like success and sales organizations, work together more effectively, business value persists throughout, and that's just good for the customer and good for the company as well.
Great. Before we sort of go down the last couple of questions, I wanted to obviously talk about advice, which is what I usually do with all my guests. And advice can vary in different ways and in different facets, but I think the advice that I think would be crucial, and we spoke about this earlier, is just advice on getting started with solutions engineering. And this goes for people who are founders and who've started to think about building something, and we spoke about that, but also those who are seeking to be more involved in technical roles, not obviously engineering roles per se, but that blend between sales and sort of solutions architect as well. Can you maybe shed some light on what are some of the pathways that one can take to get more involved in these types of roles? Maybe they can go through sales first, become a great account executive, and then transition over to an SE, or they could be a really good engineer and then feel like, I think I like speaking to people. I like being more of an extrovert. I like communication, and I want to be more involved in the sales process. What are some of the ways that you can shine to let people know that you're interested in being more involved in the SE space?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would say for folks that are interested in exploring this as a career, the key characteristic or trait of a successful SE is natural curiosity. And so demonstrating that at the company where you currently work is a great way to do that. And I think any SE leader, manager, et cetera, or SE would be more than willing to engage and help, enlighten you as to how you get into that career depending on the company that you're at. I see that all the time. We have folks that are in support, we have folks that are in sales that are interested in the SE career, and we say, come on and sit on a couple team meetings, shadow a couple calls, look at some calls on Gong, and get a sense for what the role is about. And there's also a ton that's out there. If you just are to Google solutions engineering or go on the pre-sales collective, there's a ton of resources to help you get into the profession. Many more than there were, 10 years ago. So it's not, it used to be sort of a foreign profession where you had to know somebody to discover that this even existed. And today I think it's a lot easier to find out what being an SE is all about. And also you can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm willing to help you discover the role as well. And then I would say, for folks that, for founders who are looking to perhaps hire or create their first SE role, you can also, find folks that are in your organization that are passionate about the product, who also are passionate in speaking with customers and understand it's a sales role, and bring those folks into the fold and have them start talking to customers. And those are often the most successful first hires, especially at a small company.
Yeah, makes sense. One thing that I've been interested in just learning about is the way that AI has shaped a few things and shaped the way it's displaced, obviously, a lot of organizations, a lot of people in certain roles. How do you see AI in the future augmenting the SE role? I know for engineers specifically, it's there's Copilot. There's a lot of ways that people are thinking, well, maybe it's a great supplementary tool to help software engineers become much more productive instead of displacing them altogether. How do you see AI shaping the SE space in the near future, for good or for bad?
Well, I don't want to give away too much, but there are a lot of companies that are working on some exciting stuff for the SE profession in particular. They're working on SE copilots that, in a sense, in the near future, will help deliver the same sort of value that some of these copilot solutions are delivering for engineers today. Those are some of the first and most valuable use cases we've seen for some of this LLM work. And I think the same can be applied to what SEs are doing on a day-to-day basis. It's different, of course, but there's just a lot of research that goes into the role.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of busy work in preparing presentations, and there is a lot of benefit that one can glean in this role from just summarizing large amounts of text and data in a way that is positioned for the benefit of the customer and the context of the customer. So I'm just really excited about what's to come, and I think that folks are doing some great work already. And once we sort of break through the initial first phases of this development, we're going to see a lot that will come and benefit the profession. I would also say that the key word is augmentation. I'm not worried about anybody losing their jobs. I think it's just going to make folks better at their job. And there was a recent study that came out from, I think it was Boston Consulting Group. They partnered with Harvard Business Review or Harvard Business School. And they said that, generally speaking, that ChatGPT used in a consulting context benefited top performers. Actually, that's actually not true. So strike that from the record. We're going to go back and edit it all out. It did benefit both the bottom performers and the top performers, but I'd rather not cite that particular study.
Got it.
Take a quick pause.
Makes sense. Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate that. I think there's definitely a lot of changes that AI is going to make, and I agree with you that it's not going to, this is not doom and gloom. This is definitely something exciting to be really, stoked about.
Yeah, especially for I'll use a rippling example is that we have folks that are experts in a wide variety of products or services. And because Rippling has so many products that benefit our customers, it can be challenging to be an expert in all things Rippling because, we offer an ATS, we offer performance management, headcount planning, to name a few. We have a deep reporting engine. We've got an IT cloud, finance. So it's really hard for one person to be an expert in all that stuff, especially considering that there's a whole other layer of benefits and compliance and payroll. And I just see huge potential for a lot of this technology and helping to augment expertise for folks that are naturally curious, that they're focused on the business value of the customer. But these tools can help them find the right answer at the right time in the right context. And there's just that feels like it's going to be a pretty early win for some of this technology.
Yeah, I'm excited. And I've been speaking to this with friends of mine and coworkers, and we're really excited, not just the SE space, but in engineering and just different parts of the business and product as well. So there's a lot of developments and innovations taking place right now. So I'm super excited about that. Let's quickly just wrap it up with some really, questions that I've typically asked some of our guests, especially those who are very busy, who are doing important things, and just to get a feel of how you sort of view the world a little bit. So maybe first one is, do you, and I'm not sure if you read or listen to podcasts yourself, but are there any recommendations you can provide on maybe, books or podcasts that have shaped the way you think and view the world?
Sure. Yeah. So there's a really good daily podcast called The Daily Rundown on the daily developments that are happening with generative AI and AI in general. Extremely nutrient dense, I would say, in this short form. So you can listen to it on the way to work or before you get the kids up or whatever. It's really easy, really consumable, but really nutrient dense. So I highly recommend that as a podcast daily. I also listen to Invest Like the Best, which I've been listening to for a number of years. One of my favorite podcasts. It's not. It is. In the context of what it takes to be, or it's in the context of investing capital, but they have so many different types of guests, from tech executives to authors to a wide variety of people. So a really diverse set of guests that I really enjoy. And then the book I'm reading right now is the Michael Lewis book on the FTX scandal, which is way better than I thought it was going to be, but I'm just tearing through that.
That's awesome. Next one is, when you are with your busy lifestyle and so many things to juggle, I know life can be somewhat complex and sophisticated in many ways. How do you approach sort of like decision making, especially maybe on the professional level, it could be personal level? Do you have any mental models you go through or any decision making frameworks you use to sort of streamline the way you make decisions in your life?
Wow, that's an expensive question as well. I mean, there's a lot of decisions we make. I'm a father. I have 2 young children, a husband, and also a professional. I do think, though, that the most beneficial thing, this is going to seem really simple, is to keep a journal of decisions that you've made. I think that's been more helpful than anything, than applying any sort of mental model for me personally, because it's not often that you realize how many micro and macro decisions you have to make for your life and your professional world. And it's just been really helpful for me to understand, and also just sort of frame what I want to do in the future and what sort of decisions I want to make, both personally and professionally. So that has been the most effective way to improve my decision making personally.
And then finally, you mentioned kids, you mentioned family, you mentioned obviously being deep down in and very, I guess, in a leadership role as well on the professional level. How do you sort of run your sort of life on a day-to-day basis? Just give us a sense of your daily routine, if you will, just to sort of put things into perspective for what you're doing, but also how you manage that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think routine is the key word. And also, if you're lucky enough to have a partner who you can, work with in your personal life, that's really critical to my professional life, especially in managing children. But, I go in the office 3 days a week, and we sort of balance that responsibility in the family. I also make sure that I have a routine to make sure I'm taking care of myself. I think the number one thing that I've learned as a leader is that self-care is a superpower, and more important than anybody thinks. It's so easy to burn yourself out. And if you don't show up both physically and mentally at your best self as a leader, you're not going to be effective. And it's going to be a lot harder to influence people and to bring them along. So I think a lot of people think about self-care as, something that they have to make time for. But I think it's absolutely critical, both personally and professionally. And that has to be integrated in your routine.
Yep. I 100% agree with that, and definitely impacts your mental wellness as well. So I definitely align with all of those values. Well, I think that sort of wraps it up. Really appreciate all of the time you've given. What is the best way for people to get in contact with you?
LinkedIn is the best way. ZLAWRYK on LinkedIn, easy to find. And always open to having conversations like this.
Cool. All right. I'll put all of that in the show notes below. Zach, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. And we'll speak again soon.
Thanks, Barry. That was fun.